Hello, welcome to Can Angels Fly. Once again, I'm Nancy, and today I'm here to share some of the information I received during my meditation. My meditation has been um, over some months, and it has to do with an experience I shared here on YouTube, and the video is called Sex in the Spirit, Kundalini. And in that video, I shared my Kundalini experience. Since that time, I have been partaking in meditation in order to find out an answer to a question that uh, was raised to me by Spirit as a result of my Kundalini experience. And it was that a woman is supposed to cover her head. I go into detail explaining my whole experience and how that universe brought that question to me. God, universe, all brought that question or concern to me to be addressed. And so in this video, I'm just going to give you an update about it. So we'll be talking a little bit about sex. We'll be talking about the Kundalini experience and the crown chakra, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Before we begin, though, I like to read a scripture from the Bible, if it's okay with you. Again, whenever I'm reading from the Bible text that I've been familiar with in my life, I'm not reading it from a religious position. I'm reading it because it's highly informative. And so I just want to read 1 Corinthians chapter 11, verses 6 through a few verses. And it's because I want to talk about the covering a woman should wear upon her head. And I'm not talking about the fabric covering that women wear, nor the weave, nor the wigs. I'm not talking about those type of cultural coverings, fashionable cultural coverings. Even some of those coverings, I do believe that women wear for religious purposes. But I know now that, and it's no disrespect, that I'll show you. I'll show you if you just ride the way with me. Anyway, let me read so you know where I'm at. And again, it's not about religion, not trying to convert anybody. Just I went today and looked up this particular text about women covering their head, and just trying to see how this fits into the information I've been receiving from the all, from God, from universe. I am using this app, uh, this mode on my laptop where I don't know how to look into the camera. Nonetheless, I'm still here talking with you. So let's see. 1 Corinthians. And it says, and every woman who prays or prophesies with her head uncovered dishonors her head. Before I go on, I guess I'll kind of break it down. No, I'll point out some things. It says every woman that prays or prophesies. And remember, we're talking about the Kundalini experience. The Kundalini experience that I had came through a sexual encounter, sexual ritual that I was engaged in with someone significant in my life. Recently, I've been, in the last couple of days, watching videos on YouTube about other people's testimony about their Kundalini awakening. All the Kundalini awakenings did not happen through the sexual ritual. Some happened through people going through different practices offered by, I guess, different gurus or teachers. Mine was through sexual ritual. So all I can really speak of is from my perspective. And what I realized during that Kundalini experience is that it is like a prayer. It is like prophecy. as it reads here. It says, every woman who prays or prophesies with her head uncovered dishonors her head. And remember, we're talking about why women should cover their head. Again, not talking about a fabric wrap or a wig or a hat. We're not talking about those kind of coverings. And that's what I'll get to by the end of this video. What covering are they talking about? Because that's the message I got that I shared here on YouTube about my experience after my crown chakra was activated, how I was being invaded by different energies wanting to tap into me. And during that the last experience in which a foreign entity attempted to tap into me in the wee hours of the night, I realized that that's what it meant to have your head covered or your crown chakra covered and the importance of it. Anyway, let me go on and read. For it is just as if her head were shaved. Oh, yeah. I got to come back to that. If a woman does not cover her head, let her hair be cut off. So those two. I'm going to talk about now because I always forget. So why is it this text, this came out the King James Version or something Bible. It's the information that I'm going after, seeing if it lines up with what I'm being downloaded, and it does. Not saying that the King James Version Bible is at all the creme de la creme, but it offers a part of the puzzle to humanity. I'm sure other religious texts do as well. I got to go back to where I started from before I can venture off to the other things I've ventured off into in my life. So I'm starting to crunch this again through a different lens, and it aligns. Let me stop rambling. It aligns. And the reason why I say it's better for a woman to cut her hair off, because I don't know this for certain, but I have heard that your hair is like a form of antenna. If that is the case, it'll make sense to you why it's suggested that a woman just go ahead and cut your hair off. That means you're cutting off your antennas. But we're going to come back to that if I remember. But remember, that's so important that the antennas must be cut off, broken, causing static, interference or interruption with transmission. Let me continue to read. Okay. And if it is shameful for a woman to have her hair cut off or shaved off, she should cover her head. Remember, my goal in this video is to talk about what they really mean, or the Bible scripture means when it says she must cover her head. So let's go on. A man ought to not cover his head, since he is the image and glory of God, but a woman is the glory of man. And those two sentences in this particular verse in the scripture says that a man doesn't have to cover his head. Now, I haven't gotten clear on it, but what I kind of picked up is that when it says a man is the image of God, now there are many gods. The man that you may be having a relationship with is important. Remember, they say you're supposed to be evenly yoked with your significant other. Well, the question to ask is, what God does he worship? What God is he up under? Because that's the God that together y'all will tap into. Okay. And it also said, and out of finish, the next sentence says, but it says, but the woman is the glory of man. We're going to make that make sense too. For man did not come from woman, but woman from man. Man holds the spirit, the woman holds the seed. Makes sense. It says, neither was man created for woman, but woman for man. Now, that's not talking about in the servitude context. It's talking about they need us for a purpose. And it has to do with the Kundalini experience. I'm going to explain as soon as I get through reading. It says, for this reason, a woman ought to have a sign of authority on her head, because of the angels. Listen, I got to read that again because we want to come back to that. It says, for this reason, a woman ought to have a sign of authority on her head, a covering. And we're going to define what the covering is. Because of the angels. What angels? What kind of angels exist? You know? Anyway, the final verse is, in the Lord, whoever the Lord is, okay? Not being religious here, just see how things fit. However, woman is not independent of man, nor is man independent of woman. That last sentence is just saying, hey, he needs you and you need him. And let's make it make sense. Relative to the Kundalini experience. Let's talk about the Kundalini. Let's talk about some sex, baby. Oh, my leg. Okay. Well, when in the other video I shared the Kundalini experience, I didn't go into the finest details. So I kind of want to hit on some stuff. When you agree to have the exchange with the other, and you practice or become familiar with the breathing technique that you have to stay within during the ritual, if it is done correctly, you end up awakening the serpent, and the serpent begins to spiral and to coil. And I shared in the video that it's hot. It is hot. It's more like icy hot. Icy hot. And it coils up your spine around each chakra. You can feel it. And the way it goes, there are 3 serpents that seem to be present during the Kundalini experience, during the sexual ritual. And the first serpent is your own. And again, it begins to coil and then to coil up the spine around each chakra. And I use the terminology that is, familiar to most people now. Because during the time I didn't know it was no dang on chakra. I just know the experience. But now I have labels for all of my experiences. So just ride the wave with me. And it coils up the spine around, like activating each chakra as it passes it. And they all begin to spin as you're breathing extreme. I'm talking about metric slow, inhaling and exhaling, consistent pace, ongoing pace that must be present during the whole ritual. And as a serpent spirals up the spine, it activates each chakra, and they're all rotating. It is a icy hot sensation. And I shared in the other video that it about the back of my neck before breaking through the third eye. At the same time, the third eye also was the crown chakra. Boom, activated white light, and then out in the cosmos where all of this imperative information exists. And I mean, it is extensive, enormous amounts of information. I'll come back to that. Once the force of that serpent bursts through the crown chakra, it does not scatter into the environment. No, it goes immediately over into your significant other and coils that same energy that coiled up you, coils down their spine back into their root chakra. At the exact same time, simultaneously, your significant other is going through the same thing where the serpent begins to coil within their root and goes up their spine, coiling up their spine around each chakra, activating it, and they're all spinning, simultaneously in a rhythm. And it bursts through their crown chakra as well. It does not scatter into the environment, but it comes down into you and coils downward toward your root chakra, and it continues on and on like that long as you are partaking in the ritual. That's serpent number 2. There's a third serpent that is present. I've never heard anybody talk about it. Just to say, I'm share a little deeper. I don't want to get, YouTube and got really, really strict. But anyways, a third serpent that exists, and that third serpent exists between you and that significant other. Remember, it's your personal serpent that rises and goes into your partner, and your partner serpent rises and comes to you. Third serpent is one that comes from from them to you, from you to them, and it hits the chakras exactly. Now, the chakras exactly, their root to your root, from you, what is it, the sacral or something chakra to theirs, and back and forth, hitting the heart chakra, woof, 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 and out through the head into the other, back through. So it's 3 serpents moving simultaneously. What else did I want to share? Oh, this video is about women covering their heads, which is actually referring to women covering their crown chakra that has been activated after the Kundalini experience. Where do I go with this? In the last couple of days, I have been going to YouTube, looking and listening to other people's testimony about their Kundalini experience. I think I mentioned this. Many of them did not have their Kundalini experience, Kundalini activation through sexual encounter. They studied or looked on YouTube or found a teacher that taught them how to breathe their way into it or do whatever, they did. And a lot of the people were testifying that they had like some nightmarish type of experiences upon the activation of their Kundalini. I did not have those horrific experiences. And I believe that it was due to I didn't attempt to go there. I was literally guided there by spirit, by God. You'll say that's quite interesting. You about to excuse my language, bump nasties with somebody when the spirit descend upon you there and say, now this is how it's going to go. And listen to what I say. See, that's the kind of experience I have. I'm like, okay. And from that, that's how it might happen. And so throughout my life, I've been walked spiritually a little bit at a time. I don't know when things going to happen and do happen. And so I've dealt with a lot of things in the course of my life. So I believe that when the time came for me to have that Kundalini experience, it was enriching and enlightenment. But as always, I don't have all the information. It comes when it's time for it to come. And so what I'm saying is when those people that I was listening to talk about their nightmarish experiences after having the Kundalini awakening, it may be because, and many of them were also testifying that they were just like getting an interest in spirituality, learning themselves. They were lost. They had been going through stuff. Some of them had been drinking. And so a lot more dealing with a lot of demons. And see, that Kundalini experience is a spiritual experience that taps you into the collectiveness of all things. So I think that's why they may have had their nightmarish experience. Anyway, I don't want to lose track. This video is about what do they mean by a woman covering her head. I shared in the video that I made, Sex in the Spirit Kundalini, about how an unknown entity, came to be with me in the wee hours of the night and imposed themselves upon me. And during that experience, I received another message from God, from the universe, to cover my head. And so I'm like, cover my head? What do you mean by cover my head? And so now I've been in meditation for however long it's been since I made that particular video and had that particular experience, learning what it means to cover my head. I like to go back here with some of these texts that were in First Corinthians, and when it said the man doesn't have to cover his head, he doesn't have to, and so I was like, and now mind you, I just looked this up yesterday. The whole meditation that I've been going through has just been me, divine, all he, her, whatever, kicking it with me, breaking some stuff down. I share here on YouTube that it is an infinite being working under trillions and trillions of years, and we are now time. So it takes time for it to send the information to me and for me to be able to get it and process it. So it's been a while. So here, uh, this here is just a guide. Like I said, I just looked this up and yeah, it lines up. And so I didn't have to write out a script because the script is kind of right here, so that's how I'm using this. So it's nothing about religion. It's just referring back to what I learned early on and going back to see if it ever really fit or worked because I let it go. Again, it is a script here. I'm going to have to do another video one day about what the Bible is or what it means to me now that I am a bit more awakened and enlightened. But on to why should women cover their head and what does it mean for a woman to cover her head and why? We now know the why. The why is once the Kundalini experience has happened, once the crown chakra has been activated, it has tapped into the allness that is. And the allness contains good and evil. And so that is why a woman must cover her head. We're going to get to how to cover your head. And it says, let's go back to your counterpart, the male or the masculine counterpart not having to cover his head. Why? Well, I was told a long time ago, I was taught that when you marry, you get with, connect, hook up with someone, you should be evenly yoked. And this is the same here. The man is considered the head, we'll say, masculine, powerful. And whomever the male counterpart accepts as God, worship of God, embodies, he's a direct image of him. He's a direct image of whatever God he embodies. Okay. So a lady comes along and hooks up with this guy that embodies God A. Well, guess what, lady? You begin to embody and be God A as well through your mate. So if you are a lady who was worshiping God B before you met your significant other, doesn't matter that you might be still going to visit the house of God B. Doesn't matter. If you are becoming intimate and linked with that man that worships God B, you have turned your back on your God B. I think he worshipped A, and now you are worshiping his God A, in which he embodies and all that he does, thinks, believes, etc., etc. So he ain't got to cover his head because he's directly representative of his divine energy, divine being. And you, lady, as I shared that there are 3 serpents that happen during the Kundalini awaken through a sexual ritual, and the crown chakra is open. In the first video, Sex in the Spirit, I shared how upon that experience, I was granted access to a lot of information that man's God possess you. I mean, how can I say it? There is a massive amount of knowledge that exists universally, infinitely. And as that man's counterpart, female counterpart, once my crown chakra was open, I was able to tap in to the collective information. And all information is not accessible. It's not accessible. Certain things can be grabbed out of that collective consciousness, that collective knowledge that exists universally to be used and accessed in this plane. I'm trying to make it make sense. You can't have everything. See, you gotta know how to use it. You gotta know what go together. Gotta know what come first. And so we as women, we have excellent abilities. We're highly receptive, and we have great what do they call it, multitasking skills. And so we get to go and we get this information that is accessible and ready for use now, because we have all the parts and the components. We know how to choose and pick it up. And we process that information and we hand it over to our counterpart. So once you are, let's say, out of the bed, out of a relationship, going on with your life, whatever the case may be, just because you're not having the sexual ritual is what I'm trying to get to, your crown chakra is still wide open. That plug where you were able to tap in, you were permitted to tap in to that universal or galactic knowledge, it is still open. I shared in the last video about that unseen, unknown entity coming to tap into me when God, universe, all was teaching me the lesson about covering my head. I hadn't even thought of it. Never even thought of it. And how do you cover your head? Not with a wrap, not with a wig, not with a weave, not with a headscarf. No. It is the awareness. Like I said, I wasn't even aware. And it was not until I had the experience that I became aware that I was susceptible, and that I had been tapped in to by an unknown entity. And in doing so, I permitted the creation, birth of something into some realm, whether it was this one or that unforeseen being's realm. I got the information and processed it for that entity. And that entity was able to manifest its ambition, its aim, through tapping into me. The last experience that I had that I shared in a video is when God or universe, how you like to refer to it, or woke me up and said, cover your head. And it began to teach me the lesson in covering my head. The first step was to be aware that I hold a mighty power, as any woman holds a mighty power if their crown chakra has been activated. It's just like when a young woman is a virgin. I believe it's called a hymen, exists within her uterus. And it is not until she's been spoiled that the hymen is broken. The hymen doesn't come back. Once you're spoiled, you're spoiled. It's the same thing with the crown chakra. Once the crown chakra has been activated, it is activated, it's open and ready to be tapped into. I shared in that video also that I do have the capacity, if I wanted to right here, right now, I could activate the Kundalini right here. Too much stimulation for me, and for what purpose? And that's the whole thing. That was the second. How do you cover your head? Not by a wrap, not by a scarf, not by a wig, nor weave. It is about being able to contain yourself, control yourself. I shared in the first video of how the Kundalini experience, that rising of the serpent. Wow. That's something you can get addicted to. It's an endless orgasm. It's further than an orgasm because there's no end. It's just a constant flow of what's the word? Nirvana, I think they use. It's like that nirvana. You are there and you stay there. And it's just there. You're there in a place of perfection. Um, a place of perfection. So, of course, that is something that's highly addictive and can be easily misused. And you can be, check it out, just thought about this, how you can be used. People talk about having sexual addictions and stuff. And you want that experience, you can go there and ride that wave for a continuous amount of time of perfection. You may give it over to, I'm thinking of a single woman, give it over to any and everybody just so you can ride that wave, and then they're able to manipulate you because remember, you are the one that has access to the cosmos, to the collective information, and you're able to process it and deliver it. And so that was number two. Anyway, number one was being aware. Number two of covering your head is being able to control yourself, contain yourself. As I was about to share, and I just started rambling and said, "Hey, right now I could make it happen, but for what purpose? Definitely not for the state of achieving nirvana. Nirvana is the word. The state of perfect ecstasy. No, because I have a responsibility. All women who've had that crown chakra activated has a responsibility because you are a receptor and a processor. And so, number one, you must be aware of the power. Here it says that for a woman, for this reason, a woman ought to have a sign of authority on her head. Sign of authority. And so, what do they mean by a sign of authority? Is that a wrap? Is that scarf? Is that wig? Not literally. We already discussed it's not literally, but what is the wrap in this case, or the power of authority? Is consciousness or awareness of the power that you possess. Number two is control over the use of this gift. You just don't go out and we live in a world. This is the second time I made this video because I started the video talking about how this world is upside down and it's off balance. What is good is considered bad, and what is bad is considered good. We abuse everything. We're selfish, yada yada yada, and so we're all activating our crown chakras and leaving them wide open. Wide open to what? To men. We're leaving them wide open to spiritual beings, unseen dark spirits. Remember, it says because of the angels. What angels? We learned in my text that all angels ain't good angels. I think that runs across the border in whatever culture you are. There are dark angels and as well as light angels. Remember they were falling angels in this case. In Christianity, they were fallen angels. And so what angelic energy has access to your open crown chakra? Remember, you are a receptive being. You are a spiritual being in a physical body. You still have spiritual powers. And so when it has been told for women to cover their heads. And again, they're not talking about a wig. They're not talking about a weave. They're not talking about a fancy head wrap. That's beautiful, fashionable. We're talking about covering an open crown chakra that has been activated and has the ability to access information from the universe, from the cosmos, from the all. There's very dark information that exists. And my whole point of bringing how this world is upside down, topsy-turvy, is that we may end up processing something, gaining the information, processing it, and handing it over to entities, whether man or spirit. And we don't even know that we played a part in it and that we've given birth to something um, if we're not aware. So your hair covering is first awareness. This is what I've learned in the course of my meditation seeking answer. This is what universe gave me. Um, you must be aware. You must be able to contain and control yourself. Um, Gosh dang it. It was something else. When I said this, I decided to read this because it was a script. Um, oh. And it says, in the last one it says, in the Lord. Okay, whatever. However, woman is not independent of man, or man or independent woman. It says this process cannot take place with you without them, nor them without you. Remember, I was sharing in my Kundalini experience, during my Kundalini experience, it wasn't once, it was many times. But it was a third serpent. And that third serpent was that serpent that connected he and I. I had my serpent that ran up my spine and descended through him, and his ran up and descended through me. And then it was the third serpent that went from his root to my root, chakra, back to back, through us and ran through us, like stitching us together. So when they say you stitched or you become one unit, yes, that is true. That is the case. I've experienced that and know it to be true. And so the whole point is just the way that third serpent stitched us together, basically in the spirit, and that the information that I gathered and processed, the process that took place between he and I, he could not have without me, nor I could not access it without him. Remember, a man is a representative of the God he embodies. And so that's another thing. When you're covering your head, you have to know it's like morals and values kind of thing on a spiritual level. You have to know what God you are worshiping when laying or being a receptor for a man. You got to remember, whatever God, ladies, you are interested in or call yourself worshiping, if you are laying with a man that worships another God and therefore other aims or goals, you too are worshiping that God. And so it really pours, I'm sure I forgot something. I'm positive I forgot something. It really is about, that was number 3, covering your head, is knowing what you're worshiping and how you're worshiping. You're not just laying with these men and it's not doing anything. You are promoting a particular God and its interest and its power through your man. And then it's the other thing I like to talk about, I know I'm forgetting something, is that to cut off your hair. Again, I don't know if it's certain, but I heard, and I know if I do like this to my hair or with a balloon, it's going to be all static and up like that. That your hair is an antenna. And in this scripture, it says it's better to cut your hair off. And why is it better to cut your hair off and to be bald, to shave it? Because you're trying to shut down. If you don't know how to cover your head, you do not know how to cover your head. That means to stop, to safeguard, to make sure not just anything can tap in and access and get the answer to create something in a world, this world or another world. You don't know how to cover that. Then you might as well cut your hair off to try to shut down. Because you can't shut down, but try to break down, create static, disconfiguring the message that's received through your being tapped in from a strange or foreign entity. Again, you might not know what you're about to bring into existence or birth. And so to cut the hair off could help reduce the transmission, if you don't know how to cover your head. And I think when it's talking about cutting your hair off, it literally means cut your hair off to break down the transmission that will take place, because it's just like the hymen. Once you're spoiled. It's not coming back. It's not growing back. You're no longer considered a virgin. You're spoiled. It's the same thing with the crown chakra. Once it is activated, it will continue to be activated. And when it is stimulated, whether by someone in this world, by your ability to learn to breathe, or some outside dark entity that may creep up on you in the middle of the night like it did me, it is always alert, always active, and always ready to seek out, find, and process and forward the information needed to create something in a world, whether it's this one or another. And you, my lady, will be the mother of that creation and will be held accountable. Thank you for coming to Can Angels Fly and talking further about the Kundalini experience. Until next time, bye.